Over the last few weeks, new Social Security rules have quietly started rolling out. No major press conference, no emergency alert, just changes buried inside government updates that most people never read. And here's the problem. A lot of Americans think these changes don't apply to them. They think this is only for future retirees or other people. That assumption could cost you thousands of dollars. Right now, misinformation is spreading fast. Some people are panicking, thinking benefits are being cut immediately. Others think nothing has changed at all. Both sides are missing the truth. So today we're slowing this down. We're cutting through the noise, and we're explaining exactly what these new Social Security rules mean, who qualifies under them, and why this matters more than ever in 2026. Because this is happening at a time when inflation is still squeezing households, rent is higher, medical costs are climbing, and for millions of Americans, Social Security isn't extra money. It's survival money. Now officials are calling these technical adjustments, routine updates, administrative changes. But listen to me closely. When eligibility rules change, even slightly, real people feel it. Monthly checks change, approval timelines shift, and some people discover too late that the rules they planned around no longer apply the same way. What makes this moment different is how quietly it's happening. Letters are being sent out that many people don't fully understand. Online portals are updating language without explanation. And if you don't know what to look for, you might miss the signs until after it affects your payments. And that's why this matters to you. Whether you're already collecting benefits, whether you're planning to claim in the next few years, or whether you're still working and counting on Social Security as part of your future. Because these new rules aren't just about today, they shape how the system works going forward. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, let me be clear about one thing right away. Social Security is not disappearing tomorrow. Checks are not stopping overnight, but the way the system decides who qualifies, when they qualify, and how much they receive is shifting. And historically, when changes like this happen, the people who lose out are the ones who didn't know in advance. That's why you're here. In this video, I'm going to break this down in plain English. No legal jargon, no political spin, no fear tactics, just the facts, the numbers, and the real-world impact. I'll explain what changed, why the government says it had to happen, and what you should be paying attention to right now. Because here's the truth. Most headlines won't tell you. These new rules don't hit everyone the same way. Some people won't feel a thing. Others could see delays, reductions, or new requirements they weren't expecting. And a smaller group may actually benefit, but only if they understand the system well enough to act. And that's where timing becomes everything. When you file, how you report income, what documentation you have ready. Small details now can mean big differences later. Now, let's talk about what actually changed, because this is where most people get confused. When you hear new Social Security rules, it sounds like one big, dramatic overhaul. But that's not how this works. What's happening is a series of targeted rule updates that quietly change how eligibility is reviewed, how income is counted, and how benefits are calculated and verified. And when you put those together, the system starts behaving very differently than it did just a few years ago. Let's start with eligibility. Under the updated rules, the Social Security Administration is taking a closer look at who qualifies and when, not just by age, but by work history, earnings patterns, and timing. For years, many people planned around rough assumptions. I've worked long enough. I hit the age requirement. I'll qualify automatically. Now, the agency is tightening how those assumptions are verified. Work credits are being reviewed more carefully. Gaps in employment are being flagged more often, and earnings that used to slide through with minimal review are now being double-checked against updated records. That doesn't mean you suddenly don't qualify, but it does mean delays are becoming more common. Next comes income. This is a big one. Under the newer rules, the way income is counted, especially for people still working while claiming benefits, has been adjusted. Certain types of earnings are now weighted differently. Some income sources are triggering reviews earlier than before, and the threshold where benefits begin to be reduced is being enforced more strictly. In the past, some people exceeded limits without immediate consequences. Now, enforcement is faster and more automated. That means if you're working part-time, freelancing, or earning side income, the margin for error just got smaller. And if income reporting is incorrect, even accidentally, corrections can come later in the form of reduced checks or repayment notices. Now let's talk about age. This part makes people nervous, so listen carefully. The official full retirement age hasn't suddenly jumped overnight, but the incentives and penalties around when you claim have shifted. Early claiming is being reviewed more aggressively. Delayed claiming calculations are being tightened, and benefit formulas are being applied with less flexibility than before. In simple terms, the system is rewarding precision and punishing assumptions. If you claim early without fully understanding the impact, the long-term reduction becomes harder to undo. If you delay, the increase still exists, but the paperwork and verification requirements are stricter. Now, disability and survivor benefits, these areas are seeing some of the most noticeable changes. For disability applicants, reviews are becoming more frequent. Medical documentation standards are being enforced more tightly, and periodic reevaluations are happening sooner in some cases. This doesn't mean people are being kicked off en masse, but it does mean approvals are taking longer and documentation matters more than ever. For survivors and spouses, eligibility calculations are being updated to reflect newer household income rules and benefit coordination standards. Some people are finding that benefits start later than expected. Others are seeing recalculated amounts. Again, not always reductions, but changes. So why is the government doing this now? Officially, the explanation sounds simple. The Social Security system is under pressure. More people are retiring, people are living longer, healthcare costs are rising, and fewer workers are paying into the system compared to past decades. According to internal projections, the trust fund faces long-term sustainability challenges. Not immediate collapse, but increasing strain. So instead of cutting benefits outright, which would cause outrage, the approach is more subtle. Tighten eligibility, improve enforcement, reduce errors, slow down approvals, encourage later claiming. From the government's perspective, this protects the system. From your perspective, it changes the experience. Now, here's something most people don't realize. These changes aren't being implemented all at once. They're rolling out in phases. Some updates affect new applicants only, others apply when accounts are reviewed. Some are triggered by income changes or documentation updates. That's why two people in similar situations may have very different outcomes. One person files and everything goes smoothly. Another files a month later and runs into delays, reviews, or recalculations. And that unpredictability is what's unsettling so many people right now. Now let's be clear about what is not changing, at least not yet. Monthly checks are not being eliminated. Cost of living adjustments still exist. The system is still functioning, but the margin for misunderstanding has shrunk. The days of set it and forget it planning are fading. And this is where many people get caught off guard because the rules don't announce themselves loudly. They show up in small print, in online account messages, in letters that sound routine. And if you ignore those signals, you may not realize something changed until after it affects your money. That's why the phrase you keep hearing from officials is modernization. Modernization sounds harmless, but in practice it means automation, cross-checking, less human discretion, more system-driven decisions, and systems don't care about intentions, they care about data. Now here's the turning point you need to understand. These changes don't hit everyone equally. If you're already retired and your income is stable, you may notice very little. If you're about to claim, the timing suddenly matters a lot more. If you're working while collecting, the rules just got tighter. If you're applying for disability or survivor benefits, documentation matters more than ever, which leads to the most important question. What does this mean for you personally? Because understanding the rules is one thing, but understanding how they affect your money, your timeline, and your security is what actually matters. And that's exactly what we're breaking down next. The phrase new Social Security rules makes it sound like one dramatic law was passed overnight. That's not what happened. What's actually happening is a series of policy adjustments and enforcement updates that change how the Social Security Administration reviews eligibility, income, and benefit calculations. On paper, they look technical. In real life, they affect timing, approval, and monthly payments. Let's start with eligibility. Under the updated framework, eligibility is no longer treated as a one-time checkbox. It's now an ongoing verification process. That means your age alone is not enough. Your work history is being reviewed more carefully, your earned credits are being cross-checked more aggressively, and gaps in employment that once passed without questions are now triggering follow-ups. For years, many people assumed that once they qualified, they were set. Now, qualification is being confirmed more frequently, especially at the time of application and during reviews. Next is income, and this is where many people are getting surprised. The rules around how income affects Social Security have technically existed for decades. What's new is how strictly they're being enforced. Income thresholds for people who collect benefits while still working are now monitored more closely. Side income, freelance work, and part-time earnings are being flagged faster through automated systems. In the past, some income discrepancies were caught months or even years later. Now, reviews can happen almost in real time, and when income is misreported, even unintentionally, the correction doesn't come as a warning. It comes as a reduced check or a repayment notice. That's a shock for people living on fixed incomes. Now, let's talk about age and timing. The full retirement age has not suddenly changed, but the system is becoming less forgiving about when and how you claim. Early claiming is being reviewed more closely to ensure applicants fully understand the permanent reduction. Delayed claiming is still rewarded, but documentation and verification requirements are stricter. In other words, the system is pushing people to be precise, not casual, about their decisions. This matters because once a claiming decision is finalized, reversing it is harder than ever. Now, let's move to disability benefits. This is one of the areas seeing the biggest procedural changes. Disability applications are facing tighter documentation standards. Medical evidence is being reviewed more rigorously, and follow-up evaluations are happening sooner for some recipients. This does not mean disability benefits are ending, but it does mean approvals are taking longer, and continued eligibility is being monitored more frequently. For survivors and spouses, calculations are also being updated. Household income coordination is being reviewed more carefully. Benefit overlap is being scrutinized more closely, and in some cases, benefit start dates are shifting. Again, not always reductions, but changes that affect planning. So why is all of this happening now? Officially, the explanation is system sustainability. More Americans are retiring than ever before. People are living longer, healthcare costs are rising, and fewer workers are paying into the system relative to beneficiaries. The trust fund isn't collapsing tomorrow, but projections show increasing strain. Instead of announcing benefit cuts, policymakers are focusing on enforcement, verification, and efficiency. From their perspective, this reduces waste and protects long-term funding. From your perspective, it changes how predictable Social Security feels. And here's the part that's making people uneasy. These changes are not being rolled out with one clear announcement. They're happening in stages. Some affect new applicants only. Others activate during account reviews. Some trigger only when income changes or documents are updated. That's why two people in nearly identical situations can have completely different experiences. One person applies and gets approved quickly. Another applies weeks later and faces delays, reviews, or recalculations. And that unpredictability is what's causing anxiety. Now, let's address what is not changing, because panic helps no one. Social Security checks are not stopping. Cost of living adjustments still exist. The program is still operating, but the system is becoming more automated, more cross-checking, less human discretion, faster enforcement. And automated systems don't make judgment calls. They follow rules exactly as written. That's why small details matter more now than they used to. A missed form, an outdated record, an incorrect income estimate, those things didn't always cause immediate problems in the past. Now they can. And that's the turning point because these updates don't hurt everyone equally. Some people won't notice a thing. Others will face delays, extra reviews, or unexpected adjustments. And a smaller group may actually benefit if they understand the rules early enough to act correctly. Which brings us to the most important part. Understanding the changes is only step one. What really matters is how these rules affect you personally, your money, your timeline, and your security. And that's exactly what we're breaking down next. Now, here's how this ends. And this part matters more than anything else. These new Social Security rules are not a one-day event. They're a shift in how the system operates going forward. Over the coming months, more people will receive routine-looking notices. More accounts will be reviewed. More decisions will be finalized by automated systems, not caseworkers. That means what you do next matters. Check your records. Make sure your work history is accurate. Pay attention to income reporting. Read every letter, even the ones that look harmless. Because the biggest mistakes don't come from bad intentions. They come from assuming nothing has changed. And here's the reassurance you need to hear. Social Security isn't disappearing. Benefits aren't being wiped out. This system is still here, but it's changing quietly. The people who stay informed will adapt. The people who prepare early will protect their income, and the people who ignore the changes will be forced to react later when options are limited. You're already doing the right thing by paying attention. Stay informed, stay prepared, because knowledge is protection.